Carnival Personnel was recorded in a dank, moldy basement.
Joe and Jacques, it's Carnival Personnel. Joe and Jacques, to their wives this show is their personal hell. Well, the show sounds the same every single week. Pats are great, Trump is lame, and Joe barely speaks. Who you think still listening?
Who you think still listening?
Besides Jim and Biff, yeah.
And don't forget Richard.
Here's a random review. No one cares about you two, Joe and Jacques.
Joe and Jacques, Joe and Jacques, Joe and Jacques.
Oh yeah, Toronto, how we doing tonight? Hell yeah. Great to be back in the city. My name's Tyler Morrison from a little town called Bracebridge, Ontario. Yeah. I'm driving up there and I see a giant highway billboard, has a picture of a teenager on it, says killed walking home, don't drink and drive. I don't know, seems a lot safer than walking.
Hello, welcome to Carnival Personnel Sideshow. I'm Jacques.
I'm Joe.
And Joe, this year when we worked the Boston Comedy Festival, the best part about it was all the fun people we've got to meet, who we've had on the podcast, the winners, Angelica Scanor from Toronto, and Casey, a Boston guy now, but by way of, is it South Dakota, North Dakota? Does it matter?
Should they be one Dakota anyway?
We should just give him to Canada.
Get your shit together.
Like, literally.
Casey Crawford, who's who you're talking about.
Exactly. The two winners, Matt Shearer from WBC came by and has ended up covering stuff. The Tony V night. It was a really, really great week. And in the mixed, I ended up meeting a couple guys who were there for the semifinals to record for, they have a comedy radio company, and also one of the two guys was hosting, I think, either Wednesday night or Thursday night of the second round, and they were also there to go to the Berkeley, which we're well aware of that location, to record their podcast. So this guy has a record label, a comedy record label. He's a headlining stand-up comic. He has a fantastic special on YouTube that I've watched a couple times because I missed a couple things and had to go back. I'm like, wait, did he really say something that horrible and funny at the same time? So I'm like, yep, he did. I went back. His podcast started off as a kind of a comedy / hockey fight stories and has spread to all kinds of fight stories. But and this gentleman also has his own comedy festival north of Toronto. Tyler Morrison, hey man, thank you so much for doing our podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah.
I don't even know where to start with you. So let's start where we met at the Boston Comedy Festival. You guys came down to record. How did that all come about?
Well, so yeah, with Boston Comedy Festival, long relationship with Jim McHugh and the fest. That was the first festival in the U.S. that I ever did when I started comedy back when I think I was 19 or 20. Yeah, I was 19 when they had me at the festival, which was really cool. It was a huge eye opener to me what the industry in America is like, and just the competitiveness of the comedy down there. And so it was, always had a really good vibe about Boston Comedy Festival. And then my good friend John Moses, who's my partner with the record label Standing 8 Comedy. John also did the festival, and we love the fest. So this would be a cool place for us to go down and do sort of like a best of the fest compilation of some of the best comics at Boston Comedy Festival, and hopefully get it playing on Sirius XM, and just a cool showcase of what's down there, and it'd be sort of like the starting point for doing that in other festivals too. But Boston Comedy Fest to us seemed like the perfect place to start because the history of the festival, and it's just an awesome place to be. Boston has great comics too. So
What year was that?
Yeah.
the year that I did it was 2004. So it was
Okay.
Joan Rivers was the big headliner. That's
Wow.
that makes me feel a little old, but but it was
No.
cool, man. They had some big headliners come through that fest. But like back then too, it was. I remember there was this like murderer's row of headliners. It was the year before me was George Carlin, then Joan Rivers, and then Lewis Black. I think was the next year. So it was just a who's who of top shelf.
And then they got
comics.
Gallagher too. That was a down year. I didn't like that one.
Gallagher too might have been a down year.
So I work a lot with Jim, and Joe, has worked with Jim. We took I did a show for him in Maine about 2 months ago, and picked him up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is about 1/3 of the way, and. That night, it was probably the best car ride I had with a comic, because we were talking about the Boston Comedy Festival. He was an opener for Lewis Black on the road for a while, but he told me 3 Lewis Black stories where I'm like, you're coming back on the podcast, and we're not talking anything about except these amazing, and they're really great stories about. And the long story short is, he said to Jim, yeah, I'm going to come to the festival. He got a huge movie thing. And he's like, yeah, I need these days off because I'm going to go do that. And the movie people and all the management people are like, well, you can't. We're doing this and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, let me see the contract. He goes, I shook his hand. That's my fucking contract. And he showed up. And like Jim's like, dude, you don't have to do this. He goes, my family wouldn't do it. And he's like, well, then your family sucks. So, so 2003 it is early on in the festival. And now next year is year 25. So I don't know if there's a longer running or a festival that has launched more careers than the Boston Comedy Festival. I really don't.
That's fair to say. I mean, is San Francisco still going? Like, there's a couple big ones. Like, I remember when I first did it, it was like San Francisco, Seattle, and Boston were like the ones. And if you won those festivals, you were top tier. Everyone's paying attention to that.
I think they do SF Sketchfest still. Yeah.
Yeah, the big competition festivals. They certainly all the big guns were coming to play. You know what I mean? It was the top headliners in America going to all those festivals and shooting out the lights and seeing who's the best. It was really an interesting time.
Well, this festival this year, it's really international because, again, Angelica, co-champion from Toronto. There was a kid from Ottawa that had made it. There was a kid from Vancouver in the second round. Yeah, there was a girl she came in from California, but she just moved to California from Sweden like 6 months before type thing. Yeah. And she knew about the festival. She applied for the festival before she moved to California. So, so it does. It has this really far reaching thing. And
the
again,
whitest of countries. You got Canada, you got Sweden. I think we're looking at Denmark next year.
Well, hey, we got a really bad reputation to uphold as far as being dickheads.
Boston seems to attract that.
Yes.
So let's talk about your festival. How did your festival come about? How did you survive the pandemic with it? Did you go virtual? So tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so during the pandemic, we didn't do the festival. The Cottage Comedy Fest is the one that I've been running up in Muskoka for. I guess we're coming up to 15 or 16 years. I don't even know. It's just time all bleeds into each other now. During the pandemic, we really didn't do any of that, but I was running a lot of stuff with like the metaverse and playing around in that space and trying to learn all those things. And I thought that was like good during the pandemic and seeing the technology and how it rapidly is evolving there. It's all going to end up becoming, the type of tech that everyone's using. There'll be like some sort of mass adoption eventually, but it takes time to build that. But once the pandemic ended and comedy came back, I got a little bit more busy on the road because I, sitting there for 2 years, was sick of being at home. And now we're just kind of getting back into the flow of things. We just launched a pop-up comedy club all summer long. I'm basically doing a residency up here, which is fun. So every Saturday night, I'm rocking shows in Muskoka right on the lake. It's a 50-seat venue and just pack people. And there, and they seem to be liking it so far. We haven't had to throw anyone out yet, but there's a lot of drinks on the table that are empty when we leave, so that's nice.
well, it's that is great to hear, because here, the shows are the other way. Shows are dead. I mean, like there's a couple of headliners that I work with who are great, that in the past like 2 weeks, we're talking like 12 people in a 60-person room, because it's, you know, we're not we're the opposite of a vacation town. You know what I mean?
There's an evacuation order in Boston from July through September. It's kind of like, you know, you got to get out and actually see the rest of the country or some other part of Massachusetts. That's
go
nicer.
to the Cape.
Yeah.
When you're not in the regular season, how far away do you go? Like, obviously Toronto and stuff like that, but do you do longer tours? Because you got 2 young kids.
Yeah, so I go across Canada, you know, basically anywhere that they want to book me. Sometimes I'll set up the run on my own, depending on what I want to do. It's sort of just like I'm as busy as I want to be, kind of thing. So I sort of block off. I try and do it on like weekends. I don't like to be away longer than 4 days if I don't have to. But if it's something important, or just, you know, it makes too much sense, then, you know, like I'll go up to 10 days away, that's the longest that I'll do. But it sort of has to make sense on what the run is and when and why. But I go to the US a little bit. I got a visa now to come down and do some shows down there, so that'll be good. Kind of expand my touring reach a little bit. Before, I just was kind of going down doing the festivals, like, you know, more just showcase stuff to get my name out there. But it's I kind of go anywhere where the fans are and where the money is. That's sort of the.
We should probably talk about what the podcast is actually about, because we're talking about like touring schedules and the logistics and where do we stay. But like, what is your show? You know, I guess maybe let our audience know who aren't familiar with your show, what like the premise of the show is and what the name of it is.
Oh, for the podcast. Yeah. So the podcast is different. I was just talking about stand-up.
Okay.
Yeah, my podcast is called Fight Stories. That's the one that we were recording down in Boston. It's John Moses and I, and we interview people. It's like basically the premise is everyone has a fight story. So pretty much almost everyone has been at least one fight, and they can tell the story. So, but we will go and we'll find people that have a lot of them, and we'll do a whole episode with those people. Sometimes it's, you know, comedians. Sometimes it's actual like MMA fighters. We've had, you know, boxing champ Vinny Paz on. We've had Ken Shamrock, UFC fighter, and then like NHL enforcers who, you know, these guys got stories for days. You don't get to the NHL as a fighter without already having, you know, a ton of scraps right before you get to the NHL. So there's all these guys, and then our favorite ones are like the average Joes, like the local legends, as we call them. And we'll go into when John and I are doing stand up, we'll be down in like a city, like wherever, and we'll just ask them like, who's the toughest guy in this town? And if it's a small city, like chances are everyone knows who that guy is. They're like, oh, you got to meet Pierre. And we're like, okay, let's meet Pierre. Next thing you know, we're doing an episode with this guy who's got like over 1,000 street fights. And it's just insane. And it's these things just keep popping up. And that's sort of, you know, word of mouth. People recommend people. And then when we do it live, it's kind of like Kill Tony style, where people can come up. We'll have our guests and we'll interview them, and then the audience can put like $5 in or $10 into the blood bucket, and that gets you the chance to come up, or guarantees you that you get to come up and tell your story on the show. And then whoever has the best fight story gets part of the blood bucket. So it's if their story's good, we talk to them more. If their story sucks, we kind of roast them a bit and send them on their way. But so far, it's been mostly good stories. The ones in Boston were awesome.
You had Artie Lang on. How was his fight story?
Oh my God! Well, John interviewed Artie because John Moses he's open for Artie and stuff. And Artie, like, I can't really remember anything off the top of my head about what his fight stories were. But he was just talking a bunch of crazy shit back. Like I think Artie was on. You know, he was going off the rails at that point.
Yeah.
It's good.
We haven't heard or seen Artie in a while. We hope he's doing well. But yeah, back at the zenith of his craziness, I'm sure he had lots of stories to tell.
I'm a massive fan of Artie Lang, man.
Yeah.
He's so funny. He tells a story on there about almost throwing David Cross out of a window. So it's kind of he doesn't.
Well, that was because
Cross.
He saw the Chipmunks 2, and I think that's probably what he was really upset about. His money back.
And everyone, you also had like early on in the podcast, and kind of early on in his career, you had Shane Gillis on.
Shane Gillis.
Gillis, thank you. Which I can't believe I blew that name. Yeah. That's my mother's maiden name. How crazy was that to like a couple years later just see him blow up? Like, we knew this guy when he was this.
Yeah, I mean, he was. So John Moses also, like when Shane started stand up, Shane Gillis, John brought him on the road for some of his first road gigs, I believe. So like he's known him like since the start, and they're buddies. And then when I was doing the Atlanta Laughing Skull Comedy Festival, I think it was 2016, Shane was doing it too. And John told each of us, like, you guys got to meet each other because, you guys both like to party. He's like, I think you'll get along. And I'm down there, and you go in the afternoon to the Laughing Skull Club, and you kind of sign up and get your little swag bag, and just so they know that you're there, right, at the fest. And I look over and I see this guy signing up. I'm like, this guy does not look like the other comics. Like, this guy's for sure the guy that John Moses is friends with. So we started talking, and right away we just started drinking. So we hit it off pretty quick, and he's just such a funny comic. So it was really cool. I remember when he got the Saturday Night Live gig, being so excited for him, and I'm like texting friends, I'm like, check this out, like, holy shit. And then it was like I sent the text out, and then like an hour later, a buddy sends the article that they put out to take him down. It was like, not so fast. This might not, like, this is bad. And it was just all within like such a short period of time. I couldn't imagine what it must have been like for him to go through that whirlwind. It was a vortex.
Yeah.
I mean, going from being excited for one of your friends for getting this to seeing them, trying to take him out. So I was like, they pulled the rug out on that.
Well, it's also, I mean, it's the same thing. Like, they fired not Dennis Miller. They fired Norm Macdonald, and then the next season, like 5-6 episodes in, he's hosting. It's like, is this how you're saying you fucked up? But it's also one of those things. How great is it that he's, a lot of people do the show for 2 or 3, 4, 5 years, and then leave to get the opportunities that he's doing now. So I don't think it really hurt him not getting that gig, No,
I think Shane Gillis is really good at sketch comedy too. So like he probably would have thrived on that show as well and become a favorite, but it is like his natural style is a little bit edgier. So those Gillian Keefe sketches, I mean, the fact that we get to see those as comedy fans is, that's huge, right? Like putting the censorship, muffler on him on Saturday Night Live is almost like a detriment to the comedy fans, as opposed to what you're getting now is like the unfiltered, Shane's calling his shots and doing what he wants to do, and making the comedy that that's what people like right now. It's the swing back. No one wants the politically correct.
I do.
No one wants that anymore.
There's an overreach. It's like, okay, we all agree we're going to stop saying these kinds of things and, going after those kinds of marginalized people. But on the other hand, it's like, dude,
not me.
Right. But then there's.
I didn't get the memo up here.
How did you meet John Moses?
Well, it's funny because he started in Toronto. He's from Toronto, and then he moved to New York. But he kind of moved right when I was starting stand up. So we came up in the exact same scene with the same people, but we missed each other. Like, we never met when he was in Toronto. So I didn't meet him till, I want to say maybe 10 years later. About 10 years later, I saw a video of him doing Caroline's in New York City, and it was really funny, dark, edgy comedy. I'm like, oh, I love this guy. And then I saw he's Canadian. I'm like, oh, I've got to book him up to come to my festival because, like in Canada, the festivals are very PC overall, like little bit more soft, safe comedy, because it's all funded by the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, which is, government funding. It's like if the BBC in Britain, but we're way more you know safer than that, right? I think BBC you can do a little bit edgier stuff over there just because of their culture, but in Canada it's a little bit safer and family friendly and whatever. So like the comedy festivals there, they would never book a guy like John Moses, but we in my festival, I couldn't perform at my festival if I was one of those CBC type fests. So like, we always, book edgy comics because we know that's what the working man wants to see. So so I brought John up and we became pretty good buddies right off the hop. And we were doing another podcast, and we're just talking, telling some fight stories, and everyone was getting gassed up and having a good laugh about them. And afterwards we're like, this would actually make a great podcast on its own, just like if we boil it down to that. And that's what happened. It's sort of just, started like that. And he's based out of New Jersey now, and I'm in Ontario. So we get together, as much as we can. We record some over like online on Zoom, and then a bunch in person. Sometimes we're in studio. It's just kind of all over the place. It's sort of renegade podcast, but I think that's what makes it, good. We're going everywhere. And
you guys did a show. You did a live podcast down in St. Louis a little while ago. How did you both wind up in St. Louis?
So we had Darren Kimball on the podcast, who was a hockey enforcer, played for St. Louis Blues, Quebec Nordiques, an absolute weapon. And he's such a nice guy. And we were talking to him. He's like, "Oh, you got to come down to St. Louis. We got, I can get you a couple of the former Blues players like Cam Jansen and who else do we have on there? Totally gapping. Yeah, we had those guys on, and then we just were like, let's go do it. And we booked a couple stand-up shows around that, so we were getting paid to go down there, and then we went and did episodes down there, and it was cool. Like, I'd never been to St. Louis or whatever, and St. Louis is a interesting city for sure. I remember we we get to the airport, and this guy working at the airport comes up. He goes, "Just remember, boys, you aren't actually in St. Louis. You in the loo, so don't fuck around." We're like, okay. Yeah, he's warning us about the area we're staying in. So, but it was, everyone was nice there that we ran into.
Do your podcast topics kind of go off the rails a bit, where so much like the fight stories become like, this could be a weapons charge, this could be an assault charge. We probably shouldn't broadcast this. Cut.
Sometimes we have a lawyer that's on like retainer all the time, and we like consult.
What's his fight story?
What's that? What's his fight story? Yeah. He's got a lot. He can't come on unless that guy's actually been in tons of fights. It was one of my good buddies. So I've seen him in a lot of brawls, but he probably had to become a lawyer so he could defend himself for free. And but yeah, we do sometimes run it through our lawyer to make sure. And then other times we've had to where we put one out, and then like the manager of the person who is involved calls us up like, "Whoa, that can't be out." Like there's like, we're in court right for that right now.
Oh,
he's on the podcast bragging about
case.
Beat the shit out of some local yokel.
That's
oh yeah, it was. We've only had to pull one down, and then we cut that fight out of it. But usually, we give them like the final approval, and we want to make sure that they, are good with everything, because we don't want anyone getting in trouble. That's for sure.
Check the statute of limitation. And
we sometimes do get messages from like people that like these guys have beat the shit out of, and they're like, this, like they're like talking all this trash, and they're so mad at us.
That's just awesome.
I always have a good laugh at those.
You should have like the victims on as like a special
like they deserve another beating,
where just people can just sort of like, say, well, that didn't really happen that way. No. This is what really went down.
That would be good.
He didn't
Well, we
punch me
try.
in the
You know what?
face.
Sometimes when we have like guys talk like hockey fighters and stuff, they'll be telling a story, and like it's not up to us to tell a guy if he's lying or to call that out. We don't know. We weren't there, but then the other guy hit us up like pissed off about it. And I said, "Well, come on and tell your side of it. Like, open floor for you to come on." And we've had it where we already had the one guy on, and then another fighter came on and was saying that he beat the shit out of him in a street fight, and these guys were like mad at each other still. And this is shit that happened in the 70s, and it was like the most heated thing. But then the one guy who was mad about it, he wouldn't come on again to like defend it. He was just pissed off at me, but I didn't do anything. Like I wasn't there. I can't. I can't sit there and say that. I'm not gonna call the guy a liar.
Every fight has two sides of the story because I've been in tons of fights, and you'll have somebody on says, "I punched this kid in the face." I'd be like, "No, I broke your hand with my jaw." So there's always two sides of every story. Did you grow up playing? Because you're not a small guy. I guess you had a couple scrapes.
Yeah, I was smaller when I was younger though, but I had a lot of fights when I was younger. But I was a goalie in hockey, and I would always get the blocker going.
Oh,
I definitely had a few coming up the ladder, but that's just how it is.
There isn't an enforcer I wouldn't rather drop the gloves with than have a goalie with especially the old school wafflers. Those things were like
to wear.
Yeah,
but no one wore them anymore. Like so this would have been like early 2000s. I was wearing one of the like old brown blockers from like the 70s because those things are way harder. You punch a guy with that. It's unbelievable. I'll tell you one because it's funny. We were playing in a hockey tournament in Oshawa, which is like that's near Toronto. It's where Bobby Orr played junior hockey.
The Generals.
Yeah, the Oshawa Generals, and we're playing in this tournament. We were like a lower tier team playing in this AAA tournament, and they put us up against all the three teams from the local, like from Oshawa, because we were supposed to be the cakewalk team that everyone just beats on. But we were actually pretty good because that year, the people who were coaching the higher level, we didn't like the coaches. So my buddies and we all played down a level so we could be on the same team and goon it up and drink. So we have all these awesome players. We end up, I think we tied the best team in the tournament in the first game because it's a points like round robin type thing. The second game, we lost, and then we had like a huge line brawl, and we beat the living shit out of this one team. It got really ugly. And then the next game, everyone in Oshawa was there because they hated us, and they're like throwing garbage at us, and like all the parents are, just screaming at us during the national anthem. It's like straight out of Slapshot. And the other goalie on our team was playing. We would alternate games, so just so happened this was the game I wasn't in, and I'm on the bench. And their goalie from the other team was this big fat dude, and he was talking all this shit. And it's the second period, so he's in our end, like closer to me on the bench. And so we're having a pretty colorful exchange. And I eventually had enough. I'm like, listen, dude, like I'm gonna fuck you up. I'm gonna knock you out. That's it. No, I'm not talking anymore. But he's talking all this trash still, and he's talking about the blocker. Because it's this all brown blocker, right? And he's like, "What are you fucking poor?" I'm like, "Oh no, you're gonna find out. You are going to find out what this is about." And like this guy was just a low class individual. He's like giving our moms the finger in the stands, all that. So the game's going on, and our coaches, our coaches got kicked out because we were, starting shit on the bench, and so now we have no discipline. Our trainer was like this ex boxer from like in the 70s, and he's been on Fight Stories as a guest too, Bob Rigby. And Bob Rigby, when he's in control of the bench, he just lets everything go now. Like we have zero discipline. So we get a penalty. Their goalie skates to their bench on the other side so they can get the extra attacker out. So they got 6-on-5 now. And while it's 6-on-5, it's in our end on the far end of the ice. A fight breaks out. So two guys are fighting. Linesmen and referees are all involved in this fight. They don't see what's happening on our side of the ice. Their goalie is skating back to the crease, but he's coming by the bench and he's talking shit to everyone on our bench. And I'm sitting there beside one of my buddies. I go, watch this. I just wait for him. I just time it, and he's just running his mouth, coming along. I just go bang, blocker right to the jaw, under the helmet, knocked him out cold. He goes down like it was like one shot. I thought I killed him. He was like, it was one of those bad knockouts too, where they're like convulsing on the ice.
Yeah.
None of the referees saw it. Totally, like I'm home free here. Like they did not see who did what, but all the fans saw it. So the fans start coming down to the bench, and the goalie's dad is trying to get at me. One of our defensemen is holding the goalie's dad back. And I throw the defenseman out of the way, and I just start punching the goalie's dad right in the face with the blocker. it just ignites this huge brawl. And my dad was fighting the goalie's dad and just pounding the shit out of this guy. It was unreal. We got a police escort out of Oshawa, the whole works. It was one of the most fun times of my life.
Oh, I played on a junior B team, and we had to change the name of the team from the first year to Gate Cities. The second year was the Northeast Junior Devils, because we got dropped by 3 bus companies and because we got thrown out of the league. It's a different era, but those stories are just, they sound insane and they sound bullshit, but everybody, they're real. They happen every single day.
Yeah, we used to be able to do that. I think like I came up in like the last generation before every cell phone had a camera on it.
Yeah.
Because some of the shit that we were doing back then, if it was on camera, you'd probably be catching an assault charge easily. You could do shit back then that you cannot do now.
I think
on everything.
Oh, it ruined it. I think I'm a lot older than you, John.
I like how cameras ruined like assault charges. Like, God damn it!
Yeah, assault. It's not called assault though. It's called fighting.
Yes, it's sanctioned.
Well,
assault means that like, they try to don't bring outside lingo into the game.
right.
Go ahead and ruin it.
We don't use that jargon. I don't know if you caught this on. Did you see my stand-up special Too Soon? Did you see that
one? Saw that one.
So that's at the end of that special. You want to watch it in slow motion maybe. But as I'm coming off the stage, like I had this altercation. There's this old guy who hated me the whole show, and as I'm coming off stage, he starts like chirping at me, and I just keep walking. But I knew that was going to ignite this guy and set him off. And my guy who's like he was editing the special. When he's editing, he goes, "Oh my God, did you see that the old guy in the front row flips you off as you're walking off stage?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, zoom in on his middle finger and freeze frame, and that's how we're ending the special. So the end of the special is me blowing this guy a kiss and him just give me the finger and just zooms in on that. That's how we end it.
Oh, but
there's a hockey fighter. I'm sure you remember him. Late '80s, early '90s. John Kordick. Absolutely.
Oh yes.
Legend. There's a fight that when he was with the Washington Capitals. I'm not sure who he was fighting, but at the end of the fight, he just does one of these.
He's like
just like a big fist pump.
Yep.
It's just so cocky. So whenever I get an advanced green and some guy's sitting on the other side having to wait, I always give him the John Kordick, the Rambo. Just such an asshole move.
And the funny thing is, it's like all those tough guys that you talk to, hands down, not all, but almost each and every one of them are the nicest players and the nicest guys you would ever want to meet. Just sweethearts.
Usually they're
off the
absolute
ice.
gems. I mean, like Trevor Gillies is one of the nicest guys, one of the best dudes that we've had on the show. Oh, and I should mention Reed Lowe was the other guy that we had in St. Louis. I just remembered I was gapping there, but yeah, Reed Lowe is awesome. He had great stories. I'd love to have him on for like a full episode, just him. He was so good. And then doing that podcast, it really humbles you. Like, we all get in scrapes and stuff coming up, and you think that you're tough, but then you meet these guys and you're like, oh, I'm not tough at all. Like, if the whole evolution of that podcast is just John Moses and I finding out how not tough we are. Started off telling ours like we're fucking awesome, and then all of a sudden you just realize, oh, I would get fucking killed by a lot of these people.
What are you guys doing? Putting on the foil every game. Yeah, you want some? No.
I want to, let's go back to your comedy. Let's go back to your beginning. When did you start comedy and why?
Yeah, so I started comedy in the fall of 2002. I always just wanted to be in comedy in some way, as either as a writer, performer. Originally, I love Saturday Night Live and David Letterman. All the Adam Sandler comedy albums were like the big thing. When I heard What the Hell Happened to Me and They're All Gonna Laugh at You, those were huge game changers. Really just sort of pushed me into like writing my own stuff. And Letterman, I love the top 10 lists. I'd write my own top 10 list when I was a kid, and I figured out a lot of like the joke structure, and I studied what he was doing, and I figured out how to, come in sort of like with like surprise angles, or like I really understood that quickly. And so I developed this writing thing. I used to just kind of write like for the celebrity roast things were, so because I was doing this when I was like pretty young, like I'd say like sixth grade is when I started like doing that stuff, maybe fifth grade. And then I really just always wanted to do it. And then I saw I'm trying to think what stand up it would have been. It would have been Andrew Dice Clay. I saw like a Dice Clay VHS at the movie store, and I'm like, oh, this guy looks like someone that I might enjoy. And it was like guaranteed to offend Dice one night only. It was the one in Philadelphia, even before Dice Man commented that. So I got that one, and I was like, oh, this guy's fucking nuts. I want to be like
This.
like it's not that I want to be like Dice. It's just that I really was attracted to the level of how people reacted to what he was doing.
Right.
And I loved Dice Man Kama too, like just because you can see, if you watch those two back to back, you can almost see that the rise is happening. You see he's in like a smaller club, and then the next one it's like now it's becoming Dice Mania. And so I was really interested in the phenomenon and how people reacted to that material. How do you build that? And I just thought that was kind of cool to see. And then Eddie Murphy Raw. So like when the comedians you first start watching are like rock stars with like edgy shit, it's and they're playing arenas now, or then it's just those guys had already been kind of past their stand-up prime when I checked them out, because that would have been late 90s, early 2000s when I discovered Major Heat, and Murphy was just doing movies. He's a movie star by then. But to go back and retroactively watch those huge specials, those had an impact. And Chris Rock was the guy at the time who was the new rock star, and I loved Chris Rock and still do. And that was, that made me really want to do stand up. Then I got into Carlin and Bill Hicks. I love all those. I like people who don't give a fuck, that have something to say, and they say whatever they want. And I've just always been into that.
I'm a big Michael Richards guy myself. I mean, he didn't give a shit what people thought when he just said what was on his mind. And you know what? Everybody.
Yeah, but he's been a pussy for a while now, eh? He really fell off.
Yeah.
He had one big moment,
Right.
Then he pushed out.
Oh.
Yeah. Come on, man.
I was just saying this though. Michael Richards has been. They invited him to come back to the Laugh Factory. No comedian in history has had more power than Michael Richards has right now. If he was to do a comeback set, you know how many people would be watching that? And all he has to do is open up with "What's up, my?"
Oh boy. Oh yeah. Right.
If he doubled down, that would be the most viral moment of all time.
Yeah.
He has the power, Michael. If you're watching, I know you're not.
The only thing you need to do is go viral and don't worry about anything else after that.
If he opened with an N-bomb,
Sure.
Well,
the book was all a prank. I have not been doing any work on myself.
Oh, no, exactly.
Gotcha.
Now, his special will drop on OAN or Newsmax
Right.
down here.
I'm sorry, but yeah, unfortunately, Rob Schneider has a contract with those right now, so they're a little tied up with their budget.
So, were you at all? Because you mentioned SNL, and again, because of the age difference, what's this, Tyler? I live for SNL. It's unbelievable that they're going into 50 years, but I'm a Kids in the Hall fan first. Like, That was like my. I mean, I'm old, so like I was watching Saturday Night Live in like the late '70s and stuff. But as a Canadian, aren't you legally obligated to side with the Kids in the Hall being the greatest sketch troupe of all time?
I mean, there's a case to be made. I'd say the reason that they're so good is like they came up together. Like all these SNL casts, they get
Right.
thrown together. It's a melting pot, and you're gonna have different. I'll liken it back to hockey. It's like one's like an all-star team, but then the other's the team that like grew up together and they just
Right.
know what each other's thinking at any moment. So there's two different ways of kind of evaluating that. But Kids in the Hall were phenomenal, and they a few of them were on Saturday Night Live, but any one of them could have been on Saturday Night Live. They're all superstars. Scott Thompson is one of the funniest guys I've ever met. Been able to become friends with Scott over the years, and it's watching him do stand up is unreal because he started stand up when like in the 80s, and he stopped because it was sort of like a more homophobic climate back then. It was a lot tougher to be himself in the clubs and stuff. And now obviously it's a much different culture, and it's more accepting. And so he's kind of started out after he was already a celebrity. But a lot of these celebrities, as we see, they who come back to stand up, who didn't really do a lot before they got big, or they never did before, and they're doing it now. A lot of them use their celebrity as a shortcut, and you can't shortchange the process of stand up. That's the thing. Like you really can't take a shortcut if you want to be great at this. You can be whatever, and you can do your thing for your fans, but Scott Thompson didn't shortchange the process. He went into the open mics and he worked that shit, and he worked really hard at it. And he put in the time, dedicated the time to the craft that some of these other, celebrity interlopers into stand up do not take that time. And he really, he puts on a powerful show. He clearly doesn't give a fuck. He almost, he had cancer there. He kind of faced death. And once someone faces death and they have no more fucks to give, that's the greatest stand up to watch. Just that there's no filter. And, it makes you realize just how much all of us are holding back when we do our performances.
Yeah, Jacques, you face death every night on stage, don't you? Hi-oh.
Yes. No, dying on stage is a little different.
You ever get the tear of the clown? You know what the tear of the clown is when you're on stage and you're bombing and one bead of sweat drips right down your back down the center into your ass crack. That's God letting you know you're fucking bombing, boys.
See, I don't need, as an atheist, I don't believe in a God, but the audience lets me know. The audience, the audience lets me. Exactly. Well, you know what? I believe in gods. I do believe in the old mantra, like the old the ghost in the rafters up in the forum. I 100% believe that was a real thing as a Bruins fan in the 70s and the 80s. You got the Kids in the Hall now out doing tours. They're still touring, but I think Scott Thompson's coming through Boston pretty soon. Oh, cool. And he's just his buddy. He's just
Buddy Cole.
It's Buddy Cole tour. And I wasn't around, but I definitely would have gone and seen that because it's just that it's just fantastic. And when they reboot it last year on Amazon, they haven't lost a step. It wasn't like a reboot. It was like, oh, here's season 6, just 30 years later.
Still great.
We're
still great. That's how they are. Yeah, it's awesome.
So
they are really, really solid.
So we'll get ready to wrap it up, but tell us like what the rest of this year and the next couple of years holds for you. What are you looking? Where are you hoping that the podcast goes? What's going to be happening with the festival, and what's happening with you as a headliner? Will we see you more in the States?
Yeah, you'll see me more in the States. Right now, I'm doing the summer stuff up here and just kind of getting things all positioned for the fall to be doing like a bit bigger tour, probably a bunch of Canadian stuff, and then start working my way down south into different areas. What else? I'm opening for Andrew Schultz up here when he comes into Canada, so that'll be fun. Doing another big one with him. yeah, I mean, all those things. And, I keep getting all these like kind of behind the scenes writing gigs, which is good. I was writing on the Tom Brady roast and wrote the NHL awards this year with a couple really funny guys. And so, yeah, just little gigs like that keep coming up. But I mean, I would imagine I'll probably have another stand-up special ready maybe by the end of the year. That's what I'm aiming for, or early in the winter. So yeah, just keep cranking it out. As many things that I can get. I have a new podcast that's also launching called Main Offenders. And so we've shot, I think, 8 episodes. We got 8 in the chamber, and then we're going to start rolling those out real soon. Fight Stories, the new season, is getting very close. We have a live episode that we're recording up in Canada, in Belleville, Ontario, home of the Belleville Bulls back in the day. And actually, that's going to be with former AHL enforcer Matt Goody, so that'll be fun. Yeah, so lots of things in the works, and it just doesn't stop. So,
seriously, I when I would make my notes to do this, like, oh, okay, I got to make sure I talk about Standing 8 comedy. I got to talk about, his festival.
Yeah.
I got to talk about the Fight Stories. I got to bring up, your comedy. Like there's usually one or two things.
Much, I don't.
So what I'm getting is you really don't like your family. You just want to be away from them, is what I'm gathering.
So I built this little studio on my property so I could come out and talk to pricks like you. I got a bar in here. No one bothers me.
Joe, you're going to let him talk to you like that, Joe?
I'm starting a new podcast right now called Podcast Fights. All right, come on, motherfucker. All right, come on. Throw the first fucking punch. Right here. I'll let you. Come on.
Holy, is that a video game room that you have?
No, awesome. It's a background. It's fake.
Oh, okay. I thought that was real.
Like my persona. It's all fake.
Yeah.
Wait, that's your fake persona? You must really be
I have no imagination either. I suck.
No, because I was watching that show. It's is it the King of Collectibles? And this guy has like a thing like that in his back.
This might be his. Well, I might have just ripped it off the internet. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be. So yeah, King of Collectibles is a great Netflix show if you like, memorabilia and stuff. And this guy was selling like a I think like $300,000 like original Super Mario game, and he has like this backdrop that's just like yours. That's what his room looks like. But then there's like a secret wall that you can go behind, and he's got all of his like really expensive stuff back there. Anyway, great place to break into.
Yeah, seriously.
Tyler, this was absolutely great, Joe. I'll let you finish with your final thoughts, Joe, and I mean your final thoughts, because I'm done with you.
All righty then. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, Tyler. It was great meeting you. Hopefully, I won't meet you in a back alley, because I will get my ass kicked, I'm sure. But this is great. Listen to everything that Tyler. Where can people find you online? Just like on
Instagram, Tyler Morrison 123, or YouTube. My YouTube channel, I'm always posting stuff up there. And it's Tyler Morrison, and for tour dates, tylermorrison.ca, the Canadian URL.
Yeah, it's the best kind of URL in my opinion.
It's just some guy squatting on the .com, and I will. That's if I'm fighting anyone, I'm coming out of retirement to fight that motherfucker.
Oh man, Morrison versus Morrison.
Yeah, that guy's gonna get fucked up.
We can't wait. I'm all for it. So, all right, thanks again, Tyler. Jacques, go fuck yourself, and don't forget.
I'm from a place where time isn't measured in seconds, minutes, or hours. It's measured in beer. For example, when I call a cab company, I'm not like, hey, be here in 15 minutes. No, I'm like, hey, be here in 3 beers. And in 15 minutes, that cab driver will show up. After he's had those 3 beers,